Welcome to episode 65 of Crave the Book. In today's episode, Amber and I are covering chapters 98 through 101 of Tracy Wolff Covet. And in this episode, we are finally down to the moment when Grace has to make a very, very difficult decision between Jaxon and Hudson. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right. This is welcome, guys. We're going to be covering what are probably the chapters that made me the most upset the first time reading the series. Chapters, let's see, it was 98 through 101. Amber, what was it like reading these chapters for you?
Frustrating as hell.
Yeah, I really thought that it was the end. And I put in all caps on our notes. I was like, Amber, read bonus chapter under this card. Because the bonus chapter for Covet in the Vampire Court, like bonus chapters, I feel is essential to the story, though it does contradict what happens in the main storyline, because in the main storyline, Grace says that she goes to bed and is restless all night, and in the bonus chapter, something different happens. So we'll discuss those as well. But if this is your first time listening, make sure that you listen for the howl, because that's when we're going to get into spoilers. And I didn't have any spoilers. Did you have? Looks like you have.
Yes, I did. I added 4. And I'm a bit concerned as to whether they are actually spoilers. Some of them could just be part of our dialogue, but I didn't want to give anything away.
Yeah, these are only Covet spoilers, so we probably won't spoil Court or Charm in this episode. So as long as you've read Covet, it appears that you should be good. So yeah, last we left off, everybody was still at the Crones' little cottage.
Crone's home.
Yeah, I keep saying cottage, and then I forget that it's a mansion. And she has just given Grace a bowl of apparently toxic liquid. A bowl of liquid. A bowl of what she's referred to as liquid with flowers floating in it. And my favorite line was Grace saying something about, like, I've already had too many near-death experiences. I don't need to die because of. She didn't say. Yeah, she didn't say a weed. She said weed. I don't need to die because. And I'm just like, yes, weed, the killer of teenagers, deadly weed. Made me laugh.
Also, the way that it's described is very much like a beautiful, like, is it acai or acai? How do you pronounce it? The really fancy breakfast, the like smoothie bowl with like the fancy edible flowers on top.
I think most people say acai here, but I pictured it like when Mackay. I pictured it like when you do those milk baths and you have flowers floating.
Yep. Your pregnant milk bar.
Ew. Maybe the liquid is milk.
Yeah. But like it looks really lovely, but then they're like, yeah, if you touch it, you're gonna die. And then at every point she de-escalates. She's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Like, sniff it. And then she goes like, oh, but I don't want to touch it. She's like, oh, no. It'll only kill you if you eat it. And it's like, you scared the crap out of her for just even putting her face near it.
Yeah, she was like, no, I wouldn't do that if I were you. But now she's like, you need to put your hand in the liquid. I'm like, ugh.
Yep.
The liquid.
Yep. And, like, as a human being with very, very little chemistry knowledge, like, I would be looking at the bowl and I'm like, if she thought that it was water and now said that it's liquid, my brain would be going, okay, what are all the clear liquid possibilities? Is it bleach? Is it lemonade?
Is it lemonade?
Like, I'm trying to think, like, what else would it be for her to be like, oh, no, I don't want to put my hand in the liquid?
It's vodka.
Yeah.
It's just it's a bowl of vodka.
Just straight up vodka. Like, I was probably thinking, like, maybe, like, ethanol, kind of like, maybe it's like a wet specimen.
I was going to say, because it also has to be something that a flower isn't immediately going to die in.
Yeah.
But we find out that Grace has to...
It could just be only like contact lens solution, because she needs to sterilize it.
It's a bowl of saline. And the crone had to squirt the bottles one by one, those teeny tiny little bottles, just one by one into. Because I'm imagining like a punch.
She's single-handedly making waste.
Yeah, I'm imagining
crazy.
A punch bowl sized bowl, like huge.
Her bins don't get emptied very often either. So.
No, it's all going in the ocean. But basically, the crone tells Grace that she needs to eat the flowers and that the flowers will just kind of incapacitate her to make it appear that she's dead long enough for them to basically break the spell, keeping them within the prison to escape. And Grace is like, okay. And
at no point does she tell the crone who the third person is that she's hoping to get out of prison, because she does a dumb and like doesn't mention the fact that it's a giant.
Yeah, like that
could
she
that
might
be even like she's thinking like, I need 3 people. That's also, she's not making sure that like if anybody else gets tagged along, that she's got an escape route for them. It's literally just her, Hudson, and was it Vanda?
Yeah, the
blacksmith. And she's like, yep, this is it. This is the 3 flowers. We'll be fine. And I'm like, sure, you would ask about dosage, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
if it's the only way for you to get out of this prison, and you have to be like clinically dead for them to bring you out of the prison, you would make sure that it was foolproof, right?
And you would ask a lot more questions.
Yeah, but they just don't, and it really frustrates me.
It's like, are they like roofies? Like, are you?
You'd ask more questions about taking Calpol.
Yeah, like they.
How many spoonfuls? Can I have like more than one? Like, if we don't need one, should I use it up just in case? Will I appear more dead? What happens if I only eat half of one?
Yeah, Grace her anxiety isn't showing here.
But then she's with a group of other people who aren't needing to go into the prison, so their anxiety isn't as high. And they're not asking the questions either. One of whom is a witch and deals with, like, cauldrons of Eye of Newton shit. So why isn't she asking?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's like, no, I don't think that we should trust this witch. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe if you asked more questions and found out a bit more information about the said deadly chemicals you're eating, maybe you might be in with a chance.
This sounds like a party drug.
And not at one point does any of them get out their phone and Google butterfly weed. Because this witch says that she kind of like embellishes them. Like, she goes into her garden, forages, finds the plants and things, and then adds to them. Either making them more potent.
Genetic engineering.
Yeah, like, what is the original purpose of butterfly weed? Is it even a thing? Does it exist in the real world? Nobody's done any research. They're just sitting there like, yep, taking her out. Like, they could take that, believing that this witch is like, yep, it's gonna put you to death for like a temporary death, and actually all it does is give them a bad case of hiccups. They have no idea.
Yeah.
This witch could be taking them for a ride. She could be a con woman.
And the flowers, when Grace dips her hand in the liquid, it says that they are sore and they're branded to her palm. And I'm wondering, is it like they're burned like a brand, or is it like a tattoo?
Like henna.
Or henna. Yeah, I pictured them as being like tattooed on her hand, but apparently they're branded on there, which would hurt. And she didn't ask how to get them off either.
Nope.
Like,
she has gone in with no information and came out with 1%. of the information that she needed.
Yeah, because the very next chapter, they're all back at Katmere Academy. Like, there's no return journey. It's just 1 minute they're there, and then the next minute they're home, and she's complaining about her hand hurting.
Yep, she hasn't even really asked anything about her deal, like her part of the end of the deal, like her. What's the word?
How will I know? How will you contact me?
What's the exchange rate?
Yeah. How will I be summoned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is there a warranty? Like,
is there a warranty?
Is there a certain time frame? Like, because she knows that she could be using these flowers tomorrow, or she could be using them in a year. She doesn't know. As soon as Cyrus catches them and throws them into the prison, she doesn't even ask how long the flowers will last.
Yeah.
Like, they're flowers. They're gonna die.
Or if they're in her skin, are they gonna deteriorate her over time?
She knows nothing. She is clueless.
So right when they got back, we were remembering this scene being after Dragon Court, but apparently it wasn't. Jaxon and Eden and Mackay flew back to Katmere Academy a little bit early from the Crones. So when Hudson and Grace arrived, they have already made it back. And at first...
They didn't tell her either.
What, that they were leaving?
Like, because by the time they come out of the Crone's house, it's not like everybody's going to go, okay, we're going to sit and have a picnic outside this house whilst you guys go on ahead.
Yeah.
Like, that you just kind of assume from that they came out of the Crones and they were just gone. Did they leave a message? Like, a little note? BRB, gone back to Katmere.
I mean, they had their phones, I would assume, right?
And yet they do not Google.
Butterfly weed. Yeah.
I want to Google butterfly weed.
Okay, let us know.
Butterfly weed. It is a thing.
Okay, is it deadly?
They kind of look like you know the flower like forget-me-nots?
Yeah.
Like clusters of them with longer pointed petals, and they're like a burnt orange color. Perennials. And
are they dead?
No. All parts, particularly the roots, will cause mild stomach upset if ingested.
So she doesn't actually die. She just gets a little bit of a tummy ache. I almost bought Marc a shirt that says "Tummy Ache Survivor." I love it. So they get back to Katmere Academy, and Grace and Hudson are being really playful, and Hudson is like inviting her to come spend the night in his room. And I mean, he's like super smooth too. That's one of the scenes where it was a total cock block by Jaxon.
Oh yeah.
And first of all, I want to know why she hasn't ever stayed in Hudson's room before, because it doesn't seem that there's any adult supervision that prevents these children from just wandering into each other's rooms. Like,
it's because they came back from the Dragon Court, and then they needed to immediately go back out from the Crones because Luca and Hudson had been drinking human blood, so they had to go whilst it was nightfall. Okay. So they literally wouldn't have had a chance to be able to spend the night there because they hadn't slept together at that point yet.
Right. I mean,
I don't think it was through lack of trying though.
I was going to say, I would have been staying in Hudson's room even before, like, just because it's bigger and there's fun stuff. But, fine.
More books. Better songs. If I had the opportunity to listen to his songs versus
Macy's
music, I would be in Hudson's room all day.
Yeah.
And the bed sounds better.
Big and red.
Well, the red isn't necessary. It's the big. Like I love sleeping next to my husband because it makes me feel secure and safe, and he also is a nice body warmer if it's freezing like it is currently. However, I don't like waking up looking at someone's face. He's like, I like the big beds because we're not touching.
Right. You're just close enough.
Like whenever you go on holiday and you get a double bed, compared
it's miserable.
to it's horrible. And you sound awful because you're like, is this what people sleep like? Is this normal? Do people sleep in these tiny beds together? What is going on? But then it turns out that you're just a little bit more prepared to sleep in a bigger bed than most people. Some people like the whole like snuggly thing. Or that their rooms just don't accommodate the bigger beds.
If you haven't been sleeping in a bed with your partner for at least, I'm going to say 2 years, then you can't weigh in on this. If you're like, I love cuddling. I've been with my boyfriend for 6 months and I love to cuddle. Try 12 years. No. The cuddling turns
and
into...
like right now, I sound awful. Like I'm coughing and spluttering and snorting and sniffling. And my husband doesn't want to sleep that close to me because that's how you pass germs. Like, yeah.
Our bed's just a stinky, sweaty fart fest.
It's a stopgap between sleeping on the sofa on nights where they're particularly loud.
I will always, I'm happy to sleep in the bed with my husband, but the cuddling takes place like
in the morning.
And right when we lay down, we'll like cuddle up for a minute, and then it's like, okay, too hot, get off. Go over there, roll away.
And then another thing is that if your duvet doesn't do that like M shape in between the two bodies.
Yes, we do that.
Right? Like nobody wants a duvet that isn't wide enough or long enough to not close the gap between the two people, because then you're just sharing the Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And no one wants that.
You're creating a mutual liquid.
Yeah, and there's also room for a breeze, and nobody wants that. Like, I'm like, oh, no.
Oh, okay.
And that's my TED Talk on double beds.
I hope you've all enjoyed that conversation. So Jaxon appears out of nowhere and is like, Get your
hands over
your filthy hands. Get
off my land!
Jackson's very upset because he says that it's all Hudson's fault, yada yada, and then starts like Darth Vader force choking Hudson. And Grace,
that's the only way to describe it.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly how I picture it. So Grace decides to get all up in Jackson's face and puts her hands on his face and is like, Jaxon, look at me, Jaxon. Look at the northern lights, Jaxon. And
I would have slapped her.
Like, this whole scene makes me so mad. But Hudson saying, you just gonna stand there like a cack-handed belle. What the hell does that mean? What does
do you have the term cack-handed?
No, I've never heard that before in my life.
So if you hold your pen funny, that's called cack-handed. I don't know what it's from, but like if you hold something not naturally, so if you hold a pen funny, or if you're holding a hammer and you could just look at that person and you're like, what are you doing? Toothbrush, like if they're holding it like a chisel rather than a toothbrush, it's universal phrase for holding something completely in the wrong way and awkwardly.
I would just say, like, why are you holding that all whopper-jawed?
What?
Whopper-jawed. Why are you holding that all whopper-jawed?
That's not a word. How'd you spell that?
Whopper-jawed.
See, at least our stupid idioms can be spelled. I think the phrase cack-handed belle is like something that is not just useless but also held useless.
Okay.
Or just awkward. Like, are you just going to stand there awkwardly, like doing nothing, being pointless?
Okay.
Like a chocolate teapot.
Thanks for clarifying. Makes perfect sense now.
I mean, if we were reading that, it wouldn't be a normal insult. Like, nobody would say that in a fight.
Right.
Unless to
purposely sound stupid.
But also to kind of enrage them more. Mm-hmm. Like, you're like, it's not an insult that you throw at them without wanting to sound like you don't feel like they're a threat. at all.
Then he also says, "Are you something about getting his bollocks up?" Is
getting his bollocks up?
He said, "Get your bollocks up," and I'm like, "Are we talking about his balls, his fists, his?" Because we talked, it was kind of like an oh shit, like oh shit.
Oh yeah, and also bullshit.
And bullshit. So
what? Bollocks.
Get your bollocks up. What's that?
Get your bullshit up.
Get your bullshit. Get your bullshit up. Are you gonna get your?
No, I don't remember reading it. So therefore,
it was like this, it was like right after you were distracted by the cack-handed bell, weren't you? Because that was the sentence before it.
No, I was distracted by the absurdity of the entire exchange, in which I would have slapped everybody in this scenario except Hudson.
Have you ever seen that video of the guy that slaps everyone?
No.
I'll have to send that to you. Just everybody who's listening, Google guy that slaps everyone, or go to YouTube and yeah. But
nothing would make me want a partner less than being really flirtatious and really positive towards each other, and then having an almost kiss, and then their ex goes, "Get your hands off her," and then immediately, instead of trying to diffuse the fight,
siding with him.
Yeah. And they're like, "Back off, you need to back off." And it's like, excuse me, he was the one that, for A, started it, and B, has absolutely no right to start it, because he was the one that found the spell in the first place. As much as it is a frustration that neither of them were choosing that outcome right then and there, he still had that thought process to have that spell in the first place. Right. And you certainly wouldn't throw away something that valuable in just a public bin.
Right. And that's something that Hudson, just based on his character, he would never do that.
No. And yeah, I was just very, very frustrated that, like, Jaxon was blaming everyone but himself in this situation. And as much as Grace could kind of tell, like, he looked at her and she went, "This is not the Jaxon I fell in love with." He scares me, like, his eyes are scaring me. Instead of going, "Hold on, Hudson, like, something's really wrong," saying that out loud, she then kind of sides with Jaxon until Hudson manages to actually
understand of his own accord.
Yeah, like, it's just like, hold on a minute, there's something wrong here. But she doesn't. She sides with Jaxon until Hudson's confused, and then she's like, "What's wrong? I'm just going to hug you in the middle of the corridor for 2 minutes." That's just almost it's a slap in the face for Hudson.
Yeah. And the worst part is that he just gives up. Like, he because he respects Grace's decisions so much, he's just like, whatever, and he goes cold and walks away.
I mean, I would too after watching that.
Yeah. That's
because at no point does she even discuss what, like, she's having this conversation with Jaxon. Jaxon isn't having this conversation with everybody else. It is just a conversation between Jaxon and Grace. Whether everybody else overhears is irrelevant.
It makes
it's
it
like
even...
it's a private little conversation. She doesn't actually acknowledge that her mate has any decision in this. She says, "Well, this is what he would choose. He would choose to save his brother." Have you asked him?
Yeah.
Do you want to discuss it? But no, she just goes, "Yep, okay, yep. I'm gonna break my bond with Hudson because we once discussed it at some point. Not that anything's changed since then, which it absolutely has. But yeah, like, and when she was saying, like, oh, what the blood letter said, where she just kind of broke down and cried, she was like, "That's not good enough. That's absolutely not good enough." And it's like, well, no, it's not. However, what you've come to the conclusion of doing is also not good enough, because surely everyone would get hurt in that process.
Yeah, and she doesn't even know.
No one would be happy.
She doesn't even know that it'll work. Like, the way that Jaxon described this, I put that Jaxon is literally a reverse Horcrux. Like, he's kind of... the pieces of his soul are imploding in on themselves. They have shattered, and each one of its own accord is dying individually. And who's to say that the exact same thing isn't going to happen to Hudson?
He also didn't really discuss, like, because he said that the reason why Grace isn't suffering is because Hudson is holding her together.
Yeah.
Which is basically saying, in his own way, that their bond is crap. It's not reciprocative. Grace doesn't have a soul, and Hudson's just kind of sellotaped her back together again.
Yeah. Like, he fixed her.
Like, it was a real backhanded compliment that, like, I don't think many people would kind of pick up on, but that was really mean.
Yeah.
He was essentially saying, oh yeah, well, the only reason that Hudson's mated to you is because you were vulnerable and he took advantage, and his soul is wrapped around you and has taped you all back together and fixed you, and is holding you together, but no one's holding me together. And it was very much like well, Grace, you are a dependent. You need someone to physically hold you in place together, because otherwise you wouldn't be functioning right now.
Well, that's how Jackson's always seen her. He's always seen her as somebody who, she must have, she must need Hudson to be able to. Yeah, and
it was like Hudson formed a bond out of necessity with you because you were going to die, because you were going to be soulless. And it's like, well, actually, why didn't you ever have a conversation with your brother? And I know that it probably would have been very difficult because Eskimo brothers. But why didn't you have the conversation with him and say, like, what did happen in those 4 months? Because Hudson doesn't seem to be very willing to talk to Grace about it, because he's concerned that her memory is stored away for a reason. But no one else has asked him.
No. And
not one person.
And I think that Grace also has a little bit of responsibility here to tell Jaxon, that, hey, what we had was really special, but I need to be honest with you, I am starting to feel something for your brother. Like, this isn't just a farce of relationship. This isn't just something that's happening because it naturally occurred. Like, I do have feelings for him, but anytime she addresses that she has feelings for Hudson, she snuffs it away. She's like, no.
Oh yeah, she belittles it. I mean, this is the first time that she does actually say, and I picked up on it, and I realised I hadn't actually picked up on it in any of the other reads I've done before. But she actually said, on the boy I used to love, and then she goes, on my mind like stumbles upon that and goes, oh, I didn't realise that I was already ready to say that I used to love him, and it was upsetting and hurtful to realise, but I don't love him anymore.
Yeah.
And yet she still is willing to just throw away a relationship that she does have feelings with and is happy. She was ecstatic 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah, and this whole...
Everything was happy and lovely and fun and giggly, and Jaxon came along like a wrecking ball and just goes boosh, like Miley Cyrus in her underwear.
This line when she's like, what happens? Like, if your soul dies, what happens? He says, then I become the monster everyone's expected me to be. Okay, first of all, that sounds exactly like something that a dramatic teenage boy says when his heart is broken.
Yep.
Like, oh, you don't understand the monster that lives in me. Like, shut up. Second, what does that even mean? If we're talking about it literally, and not just teenage boys being silly teenage boys, what does it mean? Do you lose all sanity? Do you become feral? Has that ever happened before? Are there any other paranormals out there that have gone feral? What's the protocol?
Yeah, that was one of my notes in spoilers, because I was like, oh, maybe I'm accidentally giving away what actually happens. But yeah, like, are there others that are soulless? Like,
yeah, it's not a spoiler.
They don't even explore that avenue.
No.
Of like, okay, if this continues, what does actually happen? Do they become something else? Because the crone doesn't refer to him as a vampire. She refers to him as a soulless one.
Soulless creature, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, well, she wouldn't be able to recognize it if it didn't already exist in the world, right?
I would assume.
And like, they've said that the reason that that no one knows much about it is because no one has ever broken their bond before. That they are the first one ever. So I'm like, of course they are. First ones ever. I'm like, yeah, well, Grace also thought that she was the only gargoyle in existence, but that's wrong. Maybe they need to explore that avenue.
Yeah, it seems that they
maybe there are other people.
It seems that they don't know a lot about their paranormal world.
No. And we find out, like, in the next couple of chapters about, like, all the different creatures that exist, that they're just like, oh yeah, no, basilisks exist, and oh yeah, these things existed, and oh yeah. Like, there are little patches of different creatures, species, or races, or whatever, that exist, and no one is really exploring them to find out more. Because your very small, secluded school doesn't know, why wouldn't the School of Mermaids and Sirens know?
Right.
Everybody has their own kind of, like, folklore and stories. I mean, they all started nodding the moment that the crones started talking about the creation story, and it's because it's like, oh yeah, no, we do remember this. This was a part of our childhood. This is a legend that has been passed down as a story. There are probably stories that exist in other cultures that they just go, no, it doesn't exist because I don't know about it, therefore it doesn't exist at all. And I'm like, why aren't you asking more people?
Yeah, they're not going to, like, the highest people. They're not going to, like, their equivalent of experts. They're going to, like, loonies that live out on islands and in ice caves, and
yeah,
they're not,
like,
asking.
as much as they've got courts, right? They've got the vampire court, and they've got the werewolf court, and then they've got the dragon court, and they've got the witch court. There is a siren court and a mermaid court and a werecrab court. Why aren't they going to the kings and queens of those courts to ask questions? And say, like, well, as much as dragons and werewolves and vampires and witches want to say in the existence of gargoyles and the fact that I am hoping to start having a seat on the circle, what are your opinions on it? Because apparently they don't care about their opinion.
Yeah.
She could absolutely go there as, like, an embassy, as a diplomat, and go, I am the only sane gargoyle left in existence, and this is what I need to regain my place on the circle. And do you have any knowledge that you might be able to impart on me from your, like, that would be an amazing conversation, and also would give her a little bit more power because she's made friends.
Right, gaining allies, that's what I was going to say.
But she's not. She's, like, almost just closing herself off and then, like, believing that only those 4 factions exist. I mean, one of which never even really gets any say in the books whatsoever. Poor werewolf court.
I know.
Like, yeah. But yeah, she could absolutely go and say, like, has any of your creatures ever broken their bond?
Yeah,
because they might go, like, actually, yeah.
There's a legend, back from blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Because legends have a place in history. Like when you listen to folklore and myths and things, there's always a scientific base for that story. It's probably very embellished, but it exists for a reason, and it's either like a fable, so that you learn to not race through life. You take it like a tortoise, kind of like Aesop's fable. But then there's also the cases of, like, that genuinely was a person that lived like this once upon a time. However, we've made his stories a bit more exciting.
Right. Right. Or use them to explain things that at the time science could not explain. Like,
Yeah.
thunder is the gods mad. Well, no, it's electricity in the sky. But at the time, before we could understand that, it made more sense to say sky angry.
Yeah. I mean, they've been to go see the Bloodletter. They've been to go see the Giant's Village, and the only person that they actually questioned was
A jewelry maker.
yeah, and then they found the wife of the blacksmith. Like these people, these cultures have a huge wealth of knowledge, and she's just kind of dismissing it as not important. And then she goes and does like crazy things like, this is my forest and I'm going to wreak havoc and destroy it with roots of trees. Has not questioned it since. She's not going, why was I so tied to that forest? Maybe I should go and ask a giant.
Right.
But then again, she doesn't really have much time.
She never revisits it when she does have time, though.
No. Or asks Vanda when she does find him.
Yeah.
In fact, I think their conversation was pretty limited.
Yeah. He was kind of just...
He was like,
well,
here, eat this flower. Bye. No.
well, let's get into spoilers.
Well, yeah, there was one more note, and it was like, if it comes down to staying with the boy who wants me, but will be just fine without me, and the boy who needs me, but who will descend into madness without me, well, there's no choice. And I'm like, what an egocentric bitch! Like she feels like she's the linchpin to everybody's life.
Yeah, like I'm the only thing that holds our little universe together.
Yeah,
like,
and at the same time, she's also belittling the way that Hudson feels about her, because reading the bonus chapter, he absolutely will descend into madness without her. Well, he's not going to be fine without her.
Well, let's discuss the bonus chapter then before we get into... For those who haven't gotten the bonus chapter, it's the Vampire Court version of Covet. And in short, it takes place after the scene where Hudson and Jaxon fight. Hudson goes back down to his room alone, and he burns the poem book that he gave Grace for her birthday. He turns on Breaking Benjamin, and he starts throwing axes, just like he has a panic attack. He says, I just try to breathe and it doesn't work. Like, he is having exactly what Grace describes when she's having a panic attack, and he never does that. So he is completely falling apart. And then he turns around and Grace is in his room, and he asks himself, like, he doesn't want to destroy her, but he asks himself, like, what about me? Why doesn't anybody worry about hurting me or destroying me? But because
maybe I shouldn't allow her to come back into my bed, because actually it will hurt more the second time.
Right.
But he just kind of ignores his own warning and go like, fuck it.
Like he knows that he's ruined every part of his room by having her there. Every time he looks at his couch, every time he looks at his bookshelves, he's going to think about Grace. And his bed is the one place that they haven't been together. But the second she jumps on him and she starts to basically just shower him with like apology affection, they immediately go to his bed, and he acts like he's going to like just straight up like anger fuck her. Like he acts like he is just going to like, because he's talking about like, you know, burning the school and themselves down and everything between them. But then she like starts getting slow and soft and sensual and just melts him like butter. But then they cuddle up afterwards, and he pretends to be asleep as she gets up, gets her clothes, and leaves his room. And tries to
what a bitch.
And tries to sneak out of his room. Just like...
She leaves a note.
Oh, yeah. Do we ever even see the note? We don't even know what the note is.
Don't think so.
Oh. And it's just so freaking heartbreaking. But Before we get into spoilers, I do want to let you guys know that because I saw the part about him turning on Breaking Benjamin in that bonus chapter, it made me remember that I've been documenting every single song from the Crave series in order, including every single bonus chapter, including Charm, and including all of the bonus chapters for Charm. And that is now available. You should be able to search Crave, I can't remember what I called it. Go to our Instagram, Crave Series Aesthetic. Aesthetic is...
Hang on. I sent a screenshot to ourselves.
What's the name of the podcast? Or not
the podcast?
Not the podcast. The playlist.
Crave Series - every song in order.
Okay, so
Blood drop.
If you just search Crave, every song in order on Spotify, the playlist cover will be red roses with a white Katmere logo, and there are little blood drop emojis around the title of the podcast or the playlist. So that has every single song in it. Even
it's 3 hours 11 minutes playlist.
Yeah, and there were some songs that they only mentioned an artist, not a song. Like, oh, I like anything by, like, what was it, Maggie Rogers. So I didn't include that. But when specific songs, including all of the bells, all of the chimes that Finn programs for the Katmere Academy, like, bells, all of that's included. So be sure to check that out. But that's your Christmas present. All right.
Oh. And there'll be more. At the moment the Cherish comes out, there'll be more.
All right, so
more songs.
Spoilers are all yours, but I do have feedback on them because I just read through them.
Oh, okay. So my first one was that they were supposed to eat these flowers and then pretend to die, and then the staff in the prison guards or whatever, would move their bodies out of the prison. And then Grace goes like, will we not be like buried alive? I suppose that's probably one of her fears because she does not want to ever be buried alive again.
Right.
She'd be fine, right?
That's true. She'll just eat all the rocks.
Yeah. But why wasn't there a pile of bodies outside the prison? Because like if no one gets buried,
so
it'll be a mass grave, no?
A couple theories. First theory, when they left the prison, when they first escaped, they immediately ended up in a graveyard.
They did.
Yeah. So there is that.
I forgot that.
Second theory is that if the only way that most people escape the prison is by doing the little tournament thing with those giants, and they all just die, they might get like pulverized into nothing. Third theory.
Ew.
Third theory, the Wendigos eat them.
That is a good theory.
Because they do.
I like to think that the prison was made of bones. You know, like that church in
Paris.
No, that's the catacombs. Bone church.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen it. Like
it's in Czech Republic. Sedlec Ossuary in Katmere, Czechia, Czech Republic. Yeah, so like everything's like made of the bones. But then I was like, you probably see more evidence of that.
I picture the prison to be a little bit more pristine. It's because they talk about how like the rooms are metal. Like I picture it to be more sterile, more clean and institutional, kind of like His Dark Materials when the children are taken in the north, and they're in their like little metal cells.
My other theory is that no one ever dies.
Okay.
That, like, maybe a few select people do, which is why they come out in the graveyard, but there would be more graves, surely. Like, if this prison is inescapable except for death, if the Wendigos would eat them, then why wouldn't these have been kind of thrown to the Wendigos?
Yeah.
Especially the giant. That would be a great meal.
Delicious.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, maybe there's something in the bracelets that stops them from dying of, like, illness and old age, because the prison, like, wants that torture, doesn't it? It wants to keep them there. So maybe it's prolonging things that, like, it stops people from having that final moment before they die.
I mean, honestly, the prison, like, I think about this prison compared to, like, the prison in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and TBH, this prison, like, they get to go eat, they get to go shopping, they get to, I mean, they get tortured, but they do get to win little moments of freedom.
It's like a little festival day.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, it
and they
seems,
get to go to market.
Yeah.
Let's go to the carnival.
Get a tattoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, that was my first question. And then the second one was like, I kind of wish that we'd found out how the kind of flowers on the palm thing happened. Because imagine if she'd be able to do that herself, like later on, like being able to store like death flowers on her divine tattoo. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
But again, she just skims over it and goes, nah, not important.
She acquires 3 different tattoos in the series: the flowers, the vine, and the crown.
No, more than that.
What else does she...
She when she makes the deal with Delilah, she gets a little tattoo.
Oh, wait, what was that? I can't remember it.
I don't remember, but every deal that she makes during court, she gets a little, like, deal tattoo.
Ah. Got it.
Because she makes a pact with Delilah to do something.
Very much Court of Thorns and Roses callbacks.
Yeah, but these were like tiny emblems as to what the deal was. Whereas Court of Thorns and Roses is very much like it will be something lunar eclipse related. Or an eye.
It'll be
nothing
giant.
Nothing really made sense. Whereas like each one was like, for example, like a key.
Yeah.
I think one was a key. Yeah, like it was a temporary one as well, because the moment that the bargain was met, the tattoo left, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like imagine being able to go like, I need this like property of this flower and I could just store it for later. She could have multiple flowers up her arm that she'd be able to use later.
Like her own little, what are those like jackets that like the salespeople wear where they open it up and they've got like 50 spoons for sale?
We call them looky men.
Of course you do. Of course you do, like, Amber.
Looky. Want to watch? Looky.
Ew, that sounds like a flasher.
And then my final one, because we did kind of talk about the Jaxon soul, like what would happen.
Yeah.
There's a sentence that says that once Jaxon said that his soul is disintegrating piece by piece until there'll be nothing left, Flint makes a terrible sound. Luca shushes him, but it's too late. The sound has pain sparking deep inside Jaxon's eyes.
Oh, I don't remember that. I must have missed that part.
Yeah. I was like, oh damn, like that is like Flint is expressing just how much that hurts, and I don't necessarily think it's because he's like, oh no, Jaxon's not got a soul, but also that is probably Flint going, that's why we didn't bond.
Yeah. And Luca might not even... Go ahead.
Yeah.
Luca might not even know. Like, he might not even understand. Well, we don't know if Flint's ever told Luca.
No. And if you were, like, just I'm not saying that Luca is a bystander to the group, but if you were just a bystander like Luca to the group, not knowing, like, all of the intimate relationships that were going on, and you heard that, your boyfriend wailing in agony, that someone that he actually had demonstrated that he hated and had tried to kill a girlfriend of multiple times, you'd think, what was that for?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that, like, it's a really sad thing to hear that someone within our little friendship circle doesn't have a soul and is dying a little bit piece by piece. But why you? Why did you make that lover's anguish wail?
Was it well known that Flint and Jaxon at one point were very close friends? Because they said that they were best friends before the whole Hudson fiasco.
Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, like, no one reacted, like, not even Hudson, who's the brother.
Right. And Mackay is his current
Grace.
best friend.
Yeah, like, no one made that, like, it was a wail.
Yeah.
Like, a terrible sound. Like, something that, you know, like, when a mother is told in a movie that her child is dead. Like, that noise. You can only describe it as a terrible sound. It's not anything that you can ever describe. And that's the way it was sounding like, is that he made this noise that was just unearthly. And it was because he realized that he was going to lose something that he never even got to have.
Yeah, I think that he settled. I think Flint settled for Luca.
Mm-hmm. But he loved him. 100%. Like I don't think that like, Flint was very happy. I don't think that he settled for Luca in the way of what a human being would settle for.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to go into this relationship because I can't have the person I really want. Like, he still fell in love with Luca and still had a relationship with him that was very fulfilling. However, it wasn't going to end in a bond.
It's Charlie Swan in New Moon saying, "Sometimes you got to learn to love what's good for you."
But yeah, like I feel like that was Flint realizing that was the reason why he never bonded.
Right. He never had a chance.
Jaxon. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a sad episode, guys. A sad episode. But
and Jaxon responded. Like, Jaxon says, like, pain sparking in his eyes of, like, he heard his best friend Flint wail that he was going to lose him, and he couldn't really do anything about it because he doesn't have a soul to connect with him.
I really hope that we get the Jaxon Flint relationship that we've been waiting for.
Even just a bonus chapter.
Yeah, like,
even just a bonus chapter.
There's
like, imagine if we had the bonus chapter of, like, Flint teaching Jaxon how to fly.
oh,
But we don't get it.
well, maybe we will.
Maybe
we will. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening. I do want to remind you all, for one, obviously we discussed that we have the playlist on Spotify, so feel free to listen to that if you want to listen to all of the songs in order. However, I will warn you that it is a roller coaster.
It's not a compiled playlist of songs that go next to each other.
No, it's like 1 minute it's like a sad song, and then it's like the theme song from Jaws. But that's the order that they're in the books, so that's the order that they're in the playlist. I would recommend hitting shuffle on that playlist for the best.
It's ADHD popcorn.
Yeah, it is all over the place. And then if you guys hop over to the Crave the Book Podcast YouTube channel and you go into the playlists and you click on our ASMR playlist, last year I created a great like a Yule log, which is one of those Christmas videos with the fireplace that you can turn on. But it would be great. It's Christmas Eve at Katmere Academy, and you can hear, like, Christmas music played on pianos echoing through the hallways, and kids passing through the corridors, and the fireplace crackling. It's one of my favorite ones out of all the ASMRs that we did. So feel free to turn that on as we...
And it's going to be so much more festive than the episode that we will have on Christmas week, which is going to be the first week in the prison.
It is.
Nice and festive.
Festive. Fun, festive prison.
Love a bit of torture for Christmas.
Yeah. We'll have our episode next week, and then we will also have one on the 28th, so 21st and 28th. Assuming that nothing bad happens, knock on wood. But if for any reason our episode comes late, it is the holidays, so just give us a little bit of leeway if you notice that the episode is late. And yeah, guys, I guess we'll talk to you next week. Bye.